So, um, anyway, if you want to see this, I'll have it here. And if there's any questions that you have about any of the finances, feel free to contact Betty about that, okay? The membership directory will go out soon. We were just tweaking one last thing, so hopefully it'll be out by the end of the month. So we'll get that out. And then I would like to say that it's an honor to give this special announcement. Grace Zay wrote the board a beautiful letter suggesting we give Carol Klingel a lifetime membership. Unfortunately, Carol was not feeling well tonight, so hopefully she's on the Zoom meeting. And I would like to read what Grace said, what she wrote. And if you ever get a letter from Grace, her scripts are absolutely a work of art in themselves. My question for you and the board, is it possible for a member to suggest a league member? If so, I would like to nominate Carol Klingel. Carol has been an active member since the early 70s. In 1984, Carol created very detailed pen and ink renderings of Medina County landmarks for a 1984 calendar, which was to be sold to benefit the Medina County Art League. And of course, she has provided outstanding programs as vice president and program chairperson for the past 2 years. Seems like longer than that, though. Carol, maybe you can fill us in on that. I'm sure you and the board may agree, and of course, there are others who have donated much time as officers, etc. But anyway, I will report next time exactly how many lifetime members. I think there was, what?
Six.
6 lifetime members.
I think Carol was the 7th.
That we have. And so it's awarded to people who have given a lot to the organization and who have been involved for many, many years, as Carol has. So thank you, Carol. The other thing that came up in the board meeting, we used to have workshops and they were canceled because of COVID, of course. And we are now wondering if you all would be interested in having workshops again, possibly in April and May of next year. So again, to give a little bit more time to see how this whole COVID thing is going to shake out. But if you all would be interested, I'd like to kind of maybe see a show of hands, and then we'll find someone to set those up. So, or is there any discussion on that? No discussion? Does anybody who's interested in having workshops, raise your hand, please. About 15, 16 people. So just to put that in the minutes. So that's great. So it seems like we need to get that up and running again, and we'll plan something for you all. Okay. Deanna, I think you have something that you would like to say about the Aquarius show, which is coming up in January.
It's Aquarius time again. And I'm only here tonight because I've got all these entry forms to pass out. I was very optimistic that we would have at least 35 people here tonight, knowing that Mel Grunau was going to be here demonstrating. So anyway, for those of you who do not know what Aquarius is, it's our annual members show. We hold it for the whole month of February on the 3rd floor of the Medina County District Library right down the street. Last year, it was COVID, but we worked around it. we took 2 days and we scheduled 4 people every 15 minutes to bring in their artwork. And sadly to say, I'm going to do the same thing this year. The show is going to be from January 31st through March 6th. So we actually have an extra week in there. The library hours are Monday through Thursday, 10 to 8, Friday and Saturday, 10 to 5, Sundays, 1 to 5. We're going to bring in our things on Thursday afternoon between 3 and 6. And this is all written down, you all have a copy. And also on Friday, January 28th, from 1 to 4. You'll bring your things up to the 3rd floor, the B. Smith Gallery. And like I said, 4 people every 15 minutes. I didn't bring the schedule today. I will have one available, and I'll email everybody so that they know what the time slots are. And you can either text me, email me, call me, whichever way. All my information, I think, is here. For 2 pieces, 1 or 2 pieces, the charge is $20, which is less than most art shows. There's no commission taken. Your clients will contact you personally. What else is good here? Pickup will be Monday and Tuesday in March. March 7th from 3 to 6, Tuesday from 1 to 4. We offer awards. I haven't found a judge yet. I've worked all afternoon getting this ready for tonight. We will have a tentative reception, depending on how the numbers go. If we have a reception, it'll be Saturday, February 5th, from 1 to 3. We will require masks to be worn on the 3rd floor, vaccinated or not. It'll be close quarters. We will also offer the show virtually again this year. Ready, Vince?
Yep.
Okay. We did that last year because we had no reception. So we have 2D, 3D. If you have 3D and need a pedestal, it tells you to contact Sharon Moore, who will bring pedestals with her. But they'll hang the same days that we take in. So when you come in to drop off your artwork, you'll come up to the table, give us your artwork, your money, check preferably, less germs on checks. You'll unwrap your things, take your wrappings with you, and then you'll leave. You don't get to look at anything. That space will be closed off so the installation committee can walk back and forth and do what they have to do. Okay? So I brought 35 of these, so I'm going to leave them on the table. So make sure you get a copy before you leave.
Deanna, I have a question. Are you looking for volunteers to help you?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Well, I'll help you.
Okay, and I'll send out a notice to the regular people.
Okay.
Sometimes they don't like to come when there's a pandemic.
Right.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. It takes a lot of work to put these shows together. So, and Deanna has been doing this quite a long time, haven't you, Deanna? How many years? Aquarius.
2004.
Wow. Wow. So thank you very much. That's great. Just to let you know, I was at Summit Art Space this past weekend and sitting at a little gallery there. And there are 4 art shows that are currently being held at Summit Art Space. So I'm thinking that it would be probably good to go down there. It's wonderful. So, and I also found out that the Fresh Show deadline for submitting work is December 15th. So if you want to put something in the Fresh Show, you can go in onto Summit Art Space and then look up under art exhibits And the Fresh Show deals with looking at things from a different perspective. So they like things that are kind of different than the ordinary. So just to give you a heads up. So, but it's a fun show, and if you've got some things, it's worth submitting something. Annette, you have something that you wanted to say about the White Rabbit Galleries. That sounds very interesting.
Oh boy, not used to having a microphone.
Yeah.
Hello.
All right. Hey, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Annette Carruthers, and I'm a polymer clay artist and instructor. And hi, everybody, home on Zoom. The reason you don't recognize me, I haven't been around for a couple of years, so this is my first meeting in like 2 years plus, that's why you don't know. She didn't recognize me because of that, but I was excited to be here tonight because I miss everybody. And it's good to see some new faces. Because I've been in the Art League for about, I think it's been 10 years. I'll have to check with Tina. I've never checked my numbers, but it's been a while. And for those of you that are thinking to yourself, I thought she moved. Well, I'm still here. I am moving to Florida. However, it takes forever to build a house, so I'll probably be here till next November. So one last winter, I think I can manage, but I get to have one more year of Ohio, which I love, my friends, and to be active in the Art League. So you'll see me more. I promise I won't go away for 2 more years until next year. Then I'll be gone. But anyway, the reason I wanted to talk to y'all today was because there's a new gallery called the White Rabbit Galleries. It's in Barberton. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it. I know Vince had stopped out there. He might have mentioned it in a meeting. And I'm a little bit more involved. I'm going to be more involved with them this coming year. I have some time before I leave. And I talked to Molly Brown. She is the executive creative director out there. And they're super nice. And I told her, I asked her if she wanted to come out tonight and talk about the gallery. I said, but if you are not able to, I would be glad to speak for you. And that's what she wanted. So the White Rabbit Galleries is in Barberton. And what she wanted to let you know, there's a few things going on out there. I was out there during Mum Fest. I stopped out because a friend of mine has an actual studio space there. So I went to check it out, and I walked in, and I thought, this is really a nice space. It's in downtown Barberton, historic building. They got plenty of room to have shows. So I'll just read to you the things that she gave me to talk about. And the first thing is coming up this week. Of course, we know we have Black Friday, and then we have Small Shop Saturday, which is exciting for those of us who sell art locally. And what she says is if anyone needs a last-minute vendor spot to sell their wares, we do have table space available for $20 during our holiday open house, which again is next Saturday, November 27th. Vendors can set up on Black Friday from 4 to 7, or in the morning of the event between 9:30 and 10. Vendors can expect to be at the event from 10 to 5, and if they'd like to sign up, you can email Molly. I do have that information for you. So that's the first thing. So if you have things you thought, I don't have anything going on next Saturday, and you wanted to come get a $20 table, she's there for you for that. There's one other event she's talking about here. It's called our Squared Fundraising Show. It's still taking submissions and can be dropped off on Black Friday between 4 and 7. Or the following Saturday, our open house from 10 to 7. Submissions are free. They can submit as many as they like. The rules can be found on our website under Calls for Art. So that's another fundraising event they have going, a fundraising show. Now the other thing she mentioned, Molly, is we'd love to do a show featuring the Medina Art League artists if you're interested. Anybody interested? You're all supposed to say yes. So anyway, I'll have to talk to Vince and Kathy about that and see how we can work a show, and it's really nice. You'll be impressed when you go out there. They also have, within the gallery, they have studios, and then they also have a consignment shop, where it's a little gift shop there, really nice. And their consignment shop only takes a 20% commission, so if any of you are interested in having your art for sale there. And she said artist studios available for rent, so apparently they have those too, still available. Classes can be held at the gallery with a 10% commission of total profits as the class fee, and also minus processing fees and are booked online. That's how I got involved. I just had my first class out there 2 weeks ago, and it was wonderful. It was a great classroom space, although they can do it in different parts of the gallery. But for what I do with my polymer and my ovens, it was perfect. And everything is done through the gallery. They put it on their site. And then at the end, I was paid before I got home. And that was very exciting because that doesn't always happen. So anyway, it's a really great opportunity there. So what I've done is I didn't have any cards for them, and they weren't able to mail me any out in time. So I went ahead and made up these little cards. They are on the table here next to, over here on the end of the table. Please take one. It just has their name, the White Rabbit Gallery's, their address, and also the contact information for Molly and Laura Smith, their Facebook and their website. So any of the things I mentioned, if they piqued your interest, go home, log on, and see what they have going on there for more information. But I wanted to share that with you. So anyway, that's all I have to say. And it's good to be back. And happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Some more great opportunities for us as artists. So the more that we can bring these things to you that you can take advantage of, I think that's part of being a part of this group, is to network and share these opportunities for you. So is there any old business or new business, Vince?
Hi guys. I just want to remind everybody that there will be no newsletter in December, but we will probably send out an email blast somewhere in December so that we don't get too far behind. We're also always looking for articles for our January newsletter, so please email those to myself or any board member, and we'll make sure we get it into the newsletter and onto the website for you. And I've been to the White Rabbit Gallery. It's very nice. So if you have a chance, stop down in Barberton. There's a coffee shop across the street. It's a great place to check out some art. So.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? I think, did you put any Cool Beans sign-up stuff, Daryl, on the table? Here, I can.
Oh, yeah, the next year's Cool Beans sign-up sheets are over here on the table. They're up every 2 months. We change, so there's 4 shows starting in April. Glorious Spring is the first one, followed by Reflections, Barnes, and then Winter Spirit. So if anybody's interested, please sign up. If anybody at home is interested in any of those 4 topics, you can email me with your name, and I'll put you on the list. There's 10 spaces for each show, so hopefully you'll try to sign up.
Great. Let's put that info in the next newsletter that goes out in January. I think that'd be a good idea. So do we have any other things that we want to bring up? Okay. Mel, you have been patiently waiting here. So we're very fortunate to have Mel Grunau tonight as our guest artist. Did I pronounce your last name right? Okay. Mel is a graduate from Baldwin Wallace in Berea with a major in studio art. He completed a master's degree in architecture at Kent State University, Kent, Ohio. Mel has taught painting classes and workshops in community and educational settings for over 35 years. He has won multiple painting awards, both locally and nationally. His work also has been featured in Artist Magazine, the Pastel Journal, and several art books, including The Art Journey, Abstract Painting, a celebration of contemporary art. Mel is one of the charter members who established the Ohio Watercolor Society in 1978. Wow, great. As a frequent workshop presenter at Cliffside Artists Collaborative in Hinckley, his students have been able to enjoy learning Mel's multimedia techniques using acrylics and collage. So please come up and enjoy what he's going to present tonight. And apparently Currently, his experience includes a wide variety of media, watercolor, acrylic, oil, pastel, and collage. So I think let's turn the program over to Mel, and thank you for coming out tonight.
Oh, well, that took care of half of what I was going to say. I got nothing left. Thank you. When Carol asked me to do this, she said, you have an hour, you can do what you want, you can talk and tell everybody your life story, or you can do a demo. And I figured both of those things wouldn't take an hour, so maybe half an hour each. And a part of it was just done. Just to zero in on the art side of my life, I was an architectural draftsman years ago. She mentioned masters at Kent State. I became a registered architect through experience, which you could do back in the old days. You can't do that anymore. But I started watercolor because I was going to do architectural renderings. And I saw some that were done in watercolor, and they were just fabulous. So I got into a class with Fred Leach. I'm sure a few of you remember Fred. He was a bit of a character, but a great teacher and a great painter, good friend. But he was primarily a fine artist. So I kind of went in that direction and kind of got away from the idea of architectural rendering. I did 2 or 3 over the years, but that was about it. And I spent time entering shows and stuff, doing those kinds of things. So I started in watercolor. I have a few. I brought some samples of different things. Just standard, typical watercolor. These were kind of quick sketches from plants that we had around the house. Before, the reason these aren't framed, hardly anything I have is framed. I'm having a show right now at Bay Arts in Bay Village. I'm going to put these over there with everything else for the handouts. My wife just made this up for me. It says, my paintings will be on sale to benefit 2 young sisters who suffer from a rare disease requiring kidney and or liver transplants. So anything that sells, whatever idea goes to these 2 kids. There's a group called CODA, which stands for Children's Organ Transplant Association. I have already sold a number of paintings that I've donated the proceeds for that. But I can't imagine how much it would cost for a liver transplant. But anyway, when you got 2 of them in the family, it's just unbelievable. So that's what we're doing out at Bay Arts. The show started Saturday, and it goes until December 23rd. They also have, if you've ever been out there, there's 3 units. An old house where their standard gallery is, and they have a Christmas sale shop going on in there. And you can buy all kinds of little gift items. Next door is the Huntington Playhouse, which they have kind of inherited and reworked. And there's another show going on in there. And then behind that is the Fuller House, which I didn't see it, but I would have loved to. They brought that house from somewhere, Lakewood or Cleveland, on a barge on the lake up to Bay Village, and then raised it up that 150-foot cliff and across the street. It's a 2-story with an attic, Victorian house. It's amazing. And it's beautifully redone. So that's where my paintings are right now. Again, I started with watercolor, and back in those days, there were a lot of Fred Leaches around. And I purposely tried to get away from looking like Fred. I mean, he was terrific. I loved what he did. So I switched colors and stuff and switched techniques. I still do, obviously, regular watercolor. This is my latest picture, which is not finished, I don't think. I gotta keep looking at it. This will probably end up, or at least part of it will be our Christmas card. I did that last year. I did a collage with a lot of Christmas flowers and ornaments and stuff. And my wife zeroes in on part of it and then puts it on a card. So that's what I'm hoping this will be. In between the two, I got into collage from watercolor. Again, if you remember Fred, he did a lot of dock scenes with old buildings and stuff, and he would paint signs out there. And I did a few of those, but then I decided to start gluing stuff on the buildings in a collage technique. And then that developed into florals. And from that, I went into plain watercolor. And from watercolor, I went to acrylic. This one, some of these, I think this is coming out in the Acrylic Works Date book that should be out shortly. And that is all acrylic. This is acrylic with some collage. There's very little collage actually. A lot of times what I do is I'll put collage on and I'll show you what happens. And then I end up painting over most of it. This little gold thing was like oh, I know, that came off a jar of acrylic medium. You know, they come sealed with a little gold, and I stuck it on there. I kind of liked it like that. So then I got into a little bit of yellow paint and so forth with it. Oh, thank you. Along the realistic side, I've had one painting reproduced as a G clay, and it was daylilies. It wasn't this one, but I had 50 copies made, and I just recently, probably 6, 7 years ago, I just recently sold the last ones. They're numbered to 100, but it took me almost 10 years to sell the first 50, so I forget the other 50. As an architect, I like old buildings, especially having grown up in Cleveland. I've done a number of paintings of the steel mills and stuff like that. And I like industrial kinds of things, and especially design wherever it is. I mean, even if it's just a manhole cover laying on the street. This was one from somewhere in Florida. I think it says City of Fort Myers, one of their manhole covers. From the collage florals, I don't have any with me except for this one because they're all off Bay Village. I went into doing what I call fantasy still life. I just kind of wing it. I used to tell people that when I was doing art fairs, I couldn't decide if I wanted to be a painter or a potter, so I painted pictures of pots. I just created my own ceramic pots. I love painting texture and detail. There's not a whole lot in here, but I mess around with little spots, things like that. And the overall design was always intriguing. still along the same line, but just a little more wild, I guess. Some of this I kind of got from a technique from Maxine Masterfield, who was another American greeting artist years ago. And she's had several books out. I think I know she's down in Florida now. Haven't seen her for years. But she would spread out her paint and then cover it with a sheet of plastic. And then pull the plastic off 24 hours later and play with the design that it makes in the paint. And that's what some of this stuff is. Like I said, I love working with texture and detail, so I can mess around in here for hours, just intensifying some of that, doing a little shadowed areas, things of that sort. That's fantasy still life number 7. I think I have 12 of them. Oh, okay, is that me making that noise? Sorry about that. I always talk with my hands. Anyway, this is a fairly current one too. I went from those kinds of things into pretty much straight abstract. And I just like to play around with the colors and the shapes. I watch, there's a TV show on PBS on Saturday morning, David Dunlop, I don't know if you've ever seen it. But it's called Landscapes Through Time. And he'll go to Giverny and do a Monet type landscape. And he goes into color theory and all that kind of stuff, which I love. I mean, I've studied it over the years, but I don't even think about it anymore. I just play around with colors till it looks right to me. And then what I did with this, and I've got another one hanging up over my piano at home. I did some sketching with a water-soluble pencil and then brushed acrylic medium over the top, and that gets the pencil to blur. And then you can play around with that too. This is one of the few that I do have at home that's framed. This one I've had for a while. There's collage in here, this down here, and this up here is a blue fabric, and the rest I painted. So again, I like to just play around with shapes, colors, line, always like drawing. So, I'm going to put my rubber gloves on, or I'll have sticky fingers forever. There are materials that you can use to keep the paint off your hands or to make it come off easier, especially acrylic. But I don't like it. It's easier to throw these cheap gloves away. Now I find this canvas, I've taken to doing that recently. I haven't always done that, and I don't always do it, but it gets rid of the light. It can be a distraction sometimes. It especially works good for a realistic painting like a landscape. A lot of the old timers, again, this is something I learned from David Dunlop. A lot of those guys would color their canvas, usually a red or an orange, sometimes gray, and then some of that would show through. For your collage, I tend to just tear stuff out.
So what magazine do you like to use
I'm sorry,
What magazine do you like to use?
what magazine? Anyone. These are, this is from a flower catalog. With the florals, I generally use that, and this, I've been getting these catalogs from White Flower Farm for years. I think I did buy something from them once, so they just keep sending me this stuff. But I do have, I don't know, maybe right out here, I think I did. I did have a collection of architectural digests for a while, and I have purchased, I almost hate to do it, but purchased old books from library sales when they're getting rid of stuff, and use those. This, I think, is out of the Architectural Digest, but I have used pictures from books of different kinds. I had a really neat one. I used up half the book already. It was about this big. Pictures of New York City. And then some of them were just fabulous. I mean, kind of abstract kinds of things. So you could tear them apart. You wouldn't know what the picture was originally. And they made great shapes, tones, colors, textures. I mean, you take something like this and it's a painting on a wall, but once you tear it out, and you glue it down, it's like nobody knows what it is anymore. This is the Flavored Olive Oil Company in Traverse City, Michigan. They've got the same thing here. I know there was one in Strongsville for a while. There's one in Rocky River, I think. It's all the same stuff, comes from the same supplier in California, but it's just different franchises. If I want some orange in there, nobody's going to know that was a glass of oil, I guess. Wouldn't even know. I will use fabric too occasionally. I've done workshops with this stuff, and I try to cut down what I brought. This is pretty much a bare minimum. Otherwise, I'd still be bringing stuff in from the parking lot. Sometimes fabric will tear easily if you get it started, but I usually end up using scissors on it. Paper stuff I will just tear up. And just kind of scatter them around. It's a little hard to show you when you're down there and we don't have a mirror up above. Like I said, I always like ceramic pots, but you can make a pot out of almost anything. You put that down there and have some flowers coming out of it. It looks pretty good, I hope. It will. Tissue paper works great. Yeah, lay it all out, but then they get the glue down there, you gotta move it all, and then I forget where I put the stuff. We'll give it a shot. I like Liquitex liquid medium. I've used gel medium, that's a little more solid and a little sturdier. But for something like this stuff works pretty good. I put some on the canvas or board. This one is on, that's on canvas too. I like to do it on plywood or masonite where you've got a hard, smooth surface. Because a lot of times, and I haven't done it too much lately, but I used to put it down and then peel it off. And when you do that, some of what's printed on the back side comes off. And quite often it's kind of neat to have lettering, words, parts of words, part of a phrase written there backwards. And people look at it trying to figure out what the heck it is. I have a couple that had Korean wrapping paper. My sister-in-law's from Korea. And I've had that in shows, and I've had a lot of Asian people, especially Koreans, will come up and look at it and try to read what's on there. Invariably, and I think you're probably wondering, does he know what he's doing? Or does he know where it's going to be? I know what I'm doing, but I don't know what it's going to be. The only disadvantage of doing it with this material is, and I know there is a product called Yes, that somebody's given me a little sample of that. I haven't bought any, but that's supposed to keep the paper flatter. This Liquitex stuff, the paper will curl up on you. Not curl, but wrinkle. I mean, if you look at this close, there's a few wrinkles in there. Part of this is because I didn't like the way this looked. I had some red flowers down here, and up here was kind of bland. So I went in with some red paint. That got to be a little too much. So I rubbed out some of it, stuck a lot more collage in there. But I was putting the collage in while the paint was still wet. So that's part of why it really wrinkled. You can rub it flat with your finger. That's another reason I wear the gloves. I was planning on making this like a spring floral because that was more Christmassy, so I thought I'd try something different. I have about 3 of these cheap brushes, and so I wish I would have bought about 10 of them before Catan's went out of business, because they were like $1.50 a piece, and they last forever. You buy one now, it costs you $3, and they're not nearly as good.
You want to tip up what you have so far so we can see what you have? Okay.
It takes a while. I have one in the show that I started, actually at Bay years ago at a workshop. Not too many years ago, nothing that old. But anyway, was on plywood. It was like a 5-hour workshop. And when I got done, I looked at it and I told the people, I said, I don't like this. I'm going to take this home and hit it with my belt sander. Which I did, which you can do on plywood, which is really why I like it. And then I played around with all the stuff that was, I thought it would take it down to bare wood, but it doesn't. It just gets rid of a lot of the collage and the color, but you still got a million little shapes to play with. And that's what I ended up doing. Was just, like that side better. Just playing around with it. That ended up in one of those collage books. There's a book called Insight. The people that put out, I'm sure you've seen or heard of the Splash books. They've been going on, I think they're up to number 23 now. The best of watercolor. But the same publisher put out a series of books, the best of mixed media. And they called it Insight. Each book had a different theme. They typically do that. And the painting that I had with the belt sander was in the first one. Then I did it deliberately a couple of times with the sander. One's, I don't know, 3 by 4 feet almost. And that was in one of those books too. So I was real lucky with that. It worked out real well. Now, I don't know, the pink background may become a problem somewhere down the line. But what I do, I don't mess around cutting this stuff off or tearing it straight. I mean, this was a corner of the page. This was too. That's one of the reasons I put it at the top, so I could use the straight edge of it up there. But here I will paint into this. I go back in with gesso a lot of times and just get some white going through there. I would like this dark shape up here. I might just add some darker color. I didn't bring a lot of paint, but I will show you in a minute or two how I go back into that. This is matte medium. I had always been using the gloss because it seemed to me like it stuck better. But the matte works just fine. Of course, with the gloss, your picture ends up being shiny, and you may not want that. One of the things about this, and one of the reasons, I don't know if I have a knife here or not. Yeah. That's what you call a well-worn brush. Oh yeah, that'll come off. One of the reasons I like the plywood is because when you peel stuff off, you get something from the backside. On canvas, you don't get a whole lot. You get a little smudge of color. But this was kind of becoming more transparent. I like the flower, but you can still see some of the background through it. So what I'll probably end up doing is painting around that background stuff. That gallery at Bay Arts, by the way, is open 7 days a week now until Christmas. I think from like 10 to 3. So after you go to the White Rabbit, you can head out to Bay Village. That's not too far from you.
Do you have friends save magazines for you?
Sometimes, yeah. Actually, a friend gave me a subscription in an architectural digest. I would not have bought it otherwise, but it was one of those, you know, a free gift for a friend. So he said, "You want it?" I said, "Sure." Being in the architecture business, I was pretty familiar with that magazine, and I like a lot of what they publish. Like going to graduate school at Kent State, I did that because I didn't go to architecture school. But I found I was not as great an architectural designer as I thought I could be. So I kind of left that up to other guys. Work with some really talented people. As a matter of fact, we bought a lot in Berea, probably 30 years ago now. And everybody wants to ask me if I designed their house. I said I worked on it for 8 years and my wife fired me and hired an architect. Hey, a young guy whose work I liked and I had worked with a couple times. This actually worked here in Medina for a couple of years together at a firm that was downtown off the square. And he did a fabulous job. I should have asked for a big wastebasket too. I'll take all this junk with me, don't worry. Generally, I have a color theme in mind. I started out because this was kind of a pinky orange color that I was gonna, and I had this orange fabric. I figured I would kind of stay in that range and go with yellows and oranges. But then there's this nice purple flower. Gotta put that in there someplace. The other thing I always tell students whenever we do a workshop is, the nice thing about this is you can't make a mistake. If somebody doesn't like it, you'll say, well, that's the way I wanted it. Even though you don't remember how the heck you got there. A lot of those little watercolors, the quarter sheet size, um, came from demos and classes. We weren't in Florida last winter, but the year before, the show that I'm having out there, I had actually planned on doing at our church because everybody knew the family. May of 2020. And then, of course, COVID got in the way. And this thing at Bay came along. I asked her if I could display some of my work somewhere, and she gave me that whole gallery, which I thought was fantastic. I didn't even know about it until about 2 weeks ago. Otherwise, they would have sent you a real nice poster. My grandson was all set to put a music video together online. I forgot where I was going with that, but it's irrelevant, I guess. You just get started with some of this, and then you can mix gesso in with paint. The medium dries clear, which I'm sure you know. And of course, the gesso is going to be white. But the other stuff, the medium looks white when you put it down. This is gesso. And I said, what I'll do sometimes is just obscure some of the edges, even if it's just with gesso. And then maybe pinch some more pink down into here to add to these flowers.
Why not use paint? And filling in like that.
I'm sorry, what was the first?
Why not use paint?
Paint?
Yes.
Paint.
Paint.
Pink paint?
Instead of
Yeah, well, I do. All right. I'll do that. Thank you. Must have 5 different pairs of pliers so I can get the caps on it. And I need the color I want. I will also, with these catalogs, like this picture, a lot of little flowers but more green, put that down to use the green to suggest leaves and foliage and whatever, and then go back into it and add more stuff to it. I have one in that show that's, I don't know, about this size. So I did a lot of branches and stuff with nothing on them, and then painted the background in around that. And I really like that one. The more I look at it, the more I liked it. What I try to do quite often is pick up the colors that are in the collage and spread them into a neighboring section. I'm thinking of this is like one pot and maybe this a little glass or something. This is where it gets kind of time consuming and tedious because you have to keep playing around with it. I'm just going to put some of this color on there to kill the orange and pink. Try to create an edge to this. I like to blot a lot too. I usually have a paper towel in one hand and a brush in the other. And you kind of play around and make up colors as you go. That's sepia and whatever that pumpkin stuff is. Alizarin carmine hue permanent. You mix it with brown, you get kind of a yucky color. But it covers some space for you. Sometimes I will do that too. Just spray it a little bit. Let it sit for a second. Sometimes I'll spray it a lot and let it run. Don't have it in this one, but I've got that in some other. But then go back and kind of blot up those spots. You can wipe off this stuff if it runs too much. And it gives you another kind of texture.
What type of finish do you put on it when you're completely done?
A lot of times, nothing, because I'm using acrylic medium, which is also a varnish. And by the time I've glued all that stuff down there, it really doesn't need anything. I started out doing this a lot on paper, but not quite like that. That's some of that 300-pound paper that will hold up pretty well. But I've also done it on like illustration board. And I had a lady once, I had it under plexiglass. She didn't like the plastic on there because of its reflection. She said, can you take that off? And I said, sure, because it's all varnish. I do the edges, the whole front of it is done with that. Sometimes I'll go over it completely with another coat. One thing that I learned a few years ago was there's an acrylic varnish, and I can't think of the name of it now. That is nice. You can buy a little jar of it, and just, I mean, it comes in flat or satin, gloss. You can mix it. I've used that several times on some things, but a lot of times I don't put much of anything on there. A lot of times too, I will try to just mimic the flowers that are there. The yellow is fairly transparent, so it doesn't cover as well as some of the others, and that's one of the reasons I like to put gesso on first. You know, the gesso will cover up what's underneath, and then the yellow will show up a little better. This is a neat color that I kind of stumbled on that I really like. It's called Shadow Green by Holbein. Comes in watercolor and acrylic, but it's almost black. And if you put it on thick or fairly heavy without thinning it down much, you can see that it's almost black. If you thin it down, it becomes green. And you can use it for background. Like up in here where this is already dark, and add to it. I'm getting a little too much water in there because if you don't have much water in it, like I said, it's pretty much black. Or as dark as black anyway. Sometimes when it's dry, maybe I mentioned it before, but I will, like in here with the paper is wrinkled, I'll sand it down. Not with a belt sander, but just, you know, a fine piece of sandpaper. Takes that lump off and leaves you some texture that you can play with also. Now this has got a long way to go. I'm sure you all agree. one of those, little notes that I laid over there about the show in May. We're also open to donations if anybody feels like it. I had a couple people, and Dennis said he can't make it to the show. Come on, it's on for a month, you can make it. But anyway, he sent a check to the church as a donation. We call her a Korean daughter, lives out in California, so he's going to send a check too. Hey, painting's off the sale too, by the way, if anybody feels a realer. I tore some of this paper off up here, and you can see some of the words printed up there backwards now. I almost always put daisies in paintings when I was plain watercolor. Or little white flowers like that. Or that. Or I would stick a daisy in some place like that. Using my finger to create a center. And then take up some yellow. Maybe mix it with a little red from the orange. Another pot. I met an artist down in Florida several years ago who made sculptures that looked like ceramics, but there was cast paper that she had made. Now I asked her if she had any scraps, and she gave me a whole bunch of stuff. This is pretty much the end of it. I might have one or two other little pieces somewhere. I haven't opened this box in quite a while. It's a sketch and wash. It says actually a water-soluble graphite pencil. There are other makers out there. This is by, I can't think of the name. It says all-surface graphite. I was teaching a watercolor class, and I picked up one of the students' pencils. We do a little drawing drawing, and the paper was wet, and just hit it, and it just dissolved. Whoa, where'd that come from? So she told me all about it. I love them. A lot of times I'll just spray something and then draw into it. It's a little too wet, and I'm trying to make the dark green blend in with the black a little bit. And there's too much water in it. It'll work though, eventually. Come back to my trusty gesso. Interesting stuff happens when you do this. There's some little bubbles that I'm sure you can't see from back there. But that's on the picture that was underneath the flowers that I put in there. And you look at it up close, it's kind of neat. Not super realistic, but it's interesting. If I'm doing something traditional, realistic, like I've got a couple cliff scenes from pictures I took down in the Cuyahoga Valley National Park, I'll use oil on a panel. For the abstracts and for this, I like acrylics because it dries quick and you can keep painting over it, keep playing with it. I do a lot of sketching in watercolor and a lot of demos. Oh, that's what I started to say before when I was in Florida 2 years ago. I took a stack about 1.5 inches thick and spent 3 months finishing them, and I had almost 100 paintings done in the 3 months. That's where those 3 little ones came from. Usually I'll put something like this on over later to finish it off. I actually kind of like that branches against that pink background. Remind me not to do that. I like to blotch like that, I like to rub it off. Again, it's playing with texture. Where are we on time? Let's keep it here.
8:26.
8:20, oh, we got a lot.
So we need to be out by about 9.
Yeah, I saw the sign outside, so you were here till 9. So. I just, after a while, this gets to be a lot of fiddling around. And I'm not too sure, I mean, if anybody has any questions.
Well, that's something you
anything
can
that I've
take
said.
a break and come back to, and come back the next day and work on it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, quite often. Like that one. This actually started out as an abstract. I had this in and I had that stuff. This, let's see it. This is actually a cover off a Smithsonian magazine, and that's an ice floe somewhere up in the Arctic. This and this. I just love the colors and the texture of it. They stuck that in there. Then I started working on a floral, but it was originally just an abstract. And it wasn't going anywhere. It still needs some finishing, but it's coming along. But I started that abstract, I don't know, months ago probably. I've got a lot of pictures sitting around the house that are in various stages of finish. And I got a lot of frames. And my wife is always after me, why do you paint something that fits the frames that we've got? Why don't you go and buy a new frame? Has anybody else done that? Good, I can tell her I'm not the only one doing it.
I like when my wife comes downstairs and looks at one of them and doesn't say anything. That's not a good sign.
Yeah, well, mine refuses to make a comment. I said, what do you think? She said, you just want me to tell you I like it so that you think it's done. You figure it out. She quit critiquing years ago. Everybody, not everybody, but people have asked her if she paints too. She tried to paint it once. And actually I got it from Leach. I did what I thought was a great floral, a bunch of flowers all coming up, and it was perfectly nice round thing. He says, looks like a bunch of cookies on sticks. Well, my wife did the same thing, and I gave her the same answer, and she never touched the brush again. And I can't sing, and she can't. She said, don't worry, someday in heaven you'll be able to sing. And I said, then you'll be able to paint. Been together a long time. Actually, I didn't like the pink here, but I do like it over there, so maybe I'll leave it alone. I don't know. But I gotta keep fiddling around with some of this, get rid of the white lines. You try to pull some of the green. A lot of times I was just kind of throwing this stuff down. But a lot of times I'll be a little more careful, especially later on if I add more to this, which I probably will. I will look for something that lines up with something else. so that there's a kind of a continuity to the flow of the objects and the design. You see, over time, without a lot of water, you can clean up some of these things. I can make the back of it, this into another flower. Down here, like it's peeking around behind that other one.
I love how you got the depth on the one that's on the easel. With the bases. You got a lot of depth in it.
Over there, thank you. Again, it's almost, it's kind of abstract, but yet I'm still thinking of it as being more realistic. I really like this little pot over here. I don't know if you can see, the edge of it is a sparkly wrapping paper. It's kind of silvery. When I put it down with this stuff, it covers up a lot of that, but you can still see some of the sparkle if you get close. And then the ones behind it. So over here, I put this flower in, so it would look like it's behind this pot. This is a little stark, I think, compared to the sides. So I may take some of these colors and wash them through there. But there's some Asian paper of some kind. Somebody gave me some sheets of paper. I don't remember where it was. It wasn't here. But I did a workshop someplace. And, it was on the cliffside, I think. I did a thing for students, and there were teachers involved. And one teacher had picked up some paper that looked like Chinese writing. Another teacher had retired and left it in the school, so she grabbed it all, and this stuff was fabulous. I don't know what it wasn't writing, but it looked like Chinese calligraphy. And I got a couple little pieces of it, but stuff like you can make up your own. A lot of times, this probably wouldn't lend itself to it very well, but I do have some black and white fabric. They make a Xerox of it, and then use the paper copy as part of your collage.
Is wrapping paper too thin, or does that work?
Wrapping paper works pretty good, I think. That's what this is. I mean, you can see how thin it is because the background is showing through.
Oh, okay.
But I like the gold on it.
Yeah.
And then when I overlap this cloth, you can still see it. Newspaper is about the only thing I tend not to use. Because once you glue it down and paint into it, it turns almost black. It just sucks up the paint, whatever it is. You lose all the texture. Magazines, I think, are much better. And like I said, the Xerox, I didn't bring any with me. But you can find you can buy colored paper at Joann's and some other places. They got a whole wall with this stuff. Just different patterns, and then just make black and white copies and use that as a basis for a design. And then you can paint anything you want into it. It doesn't hurt to cut pictures out with scissors. I tend not to like the straight edge that you get doing that. That's why I tear them. But when you tear them, sometimes you'll lose half of the picture that you were after. Then you have to kind of paint over it. Sometimes just a little bit of paint like that, going from the flower over the green, looks like it belongs there. These things have faded completely. So you can punch them up, create new flowers out of them with some white. Now, if this becomes too harsh and too bright, I can punch this one up, or I can tone this one down just by washing over with some color, adding little centers. They don't have to look like real flowers, just as long as they look kind of flowery. And you can always let some of that background color show too. You don't have to cover it all up.
Well, you got about 5 more minutes.
5 more?
Roughly, yeah. It's good, because I think
Oh.
people want to come up and really
I
look.
got about 6 more days to go. Oh, my wife's running. Well, maybe we'll let it do that. See what happens.
At least you're not afraid to experiment.
I did a demo one time. Can't remember. I thought it was in Medina. Maybe. I lose track of stuff all the time. Where I was doing this, it was a full size either board or something real big for a large group. And I didn't like where it was going. Near the finish, like 5 minutes, I took a bunch of red paint. Everybody went, ah! Actually, it turned out fairly decent. Yeah, this is going to take, what I'll probably do is, instead of trying to bring these stems down, just take some of this white up into here a little bit. Try to get these things to function together. And I may go actually into it fairly detailed with a small brush and paint out some of that purple stuff in the background. And I want to get rid of these white lines. Coming up with that color is going to be, it's not going to work with the shadow green that I'm using, so I'll have to come up with something else. And just try to blend that green down into these flowers down here. And if that doesn't work, I can stick something else on top of it. And with like this handmade paper and some of this, you can see some of the strings hanging out. I just let those go and let them work. I think right down through here it's working fairly nicely. It's kind of interesting. I'll probably do a little bit more to darken up this edge. but I like what's happening in here. Not too sure about the oil glass or whatever it was, glass of wine. Anyway, that's how we start.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you all. Thank you so much. You've been fun.
Well, we can see it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you
We've
all for
got the
coming.
person.
Happy holidays to you
Yeah.
all.
Have a good Thanksgiving.
And, Mel, I'd like to see when this is finished, can you send Carol a picture and we'll put it up on our website? I think that would be kind of fun to see what that looks like when he's finished, mostly finished with it. I think.
Yeah, I would. Remember it, and it's not open anything like that. I'll take a picture of it now.
Picture of it now, yeah.